Welcome back for another video. In this video, we're going to be going through how to create a turn profile with a solid. So basically how to turn a solid. And there's two ways that we're going to go through it. So we're going to create some geometry to do so. And then we're also just going to use the base solid. And we're going to use solid selection when we create our toolpath to select our profile as well. We're also going to go over how to engrave around the outside of a part, and we're going to go through two ways to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first things first. By the way, if you're wondering what these lines are, they're just my axes. You can toggle those on and off here in view. I usually like them on so that way I know where I'm at in my Cartesian coordinate system. So let's go to turning. And I'm just going to go to rough. Actually, check that. I'm going to go to face first. We'll face this thing quick. Yes, check. All right, that was quick enough. All right, so now we're going to rough. And you can see it already selects, it already assumes it because Mastercam knows that I have a solid file here. So it's going to assume that I want to select the outsides of the solid. If I were to select this right here, wireframe, or if I was still on that, I can't pick anything because I don't have a wireframe. I only have a solid. So what I need to do is I need to hit solid if it doesn't already come up here. And what this will do is it'll actually give you the outside. It'll give you the farthest or the biggest X diameters, and it'll draw essentially a wireframe around them, a temporary one that you can use to create your toolpath. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that. So I'm going to go here and to here, and it's just going to give me the partial, and I'm going to go ahead and hit check, and I'm just going to use this tool. I'm not going to set any of the parameters because you guys know how to do that by now, hopefully. It's going to extend it past check, check, and it's using stock as outer boundary, I believe, because I believe I have that set in my, I have it set in my defaults, and then go finish, and I'm just going to hit last for that one. Last selection, check. And same thing, check. Uh-oh. Tool collision, continue. I wonder where it's colliding at. That's interesting. Let me rerun that again. See what happens here. Oh, okay. Well, let's take a look at our path. Let's go rechain all. Let's reselect that. See if that does the trick. Okay. So when I hit last, apparently it must have missed this line or something like that. So I just rechained it, and now it looks like it's good. It's kind of odd because when you hit last, it's supposed to pick exactly what you had before, but a little bit of a glitch there. And we're good though. So, okay, so that's basically one of the ways that you can turn this thing. And you can see here, it's not actually turning it to where it crosses the plane, like it would slice it in half. It's actually turning it to the biggest diameter. So if this were rotated, this part were rotated around, and this was directly vertical, it would be the outside of this. So that's actually really convenient because we don't have to rotate this part and then slice it to get that profile. We can just basically it'll spin it and get that profile for us. So that's one of the ways. The other way, if I delete these, leave my face pass here. So I delete these, selection, delete, yes. Okay, so go to top. If I want to create geometry to actually use for this so that I can go and refer to it later, or for whatever reason, if I just like having the outside geometry there, what I do is create a new level, and I just call it profile or turn profile. And I'll work on that level. I'm going to go to wireframe, and I'm going to pick turn profile here under wireframe. When I pick that, it's going to select my solid and hit End Selection. And there's two options here. I can pick Slice, which is basically going to slice this right down the middle. So it's going to give me the outline from this point. It's not going to give me the furthest X diameter. So if I just demo that quick, let's hit check. You can see there, it just slices it down the middle. That's not going to be a good turn profile because we're not going to have this lobe. Basically, we're going to turn this part of this lobe away. So we don't want that. So I'm going to undo that. And let's go back and do turn profile. We want to do spin. Oh, got to select it first. So we're going to do spin. And basically what that's going to do is it's going to almost, think of like the part if it were spinning 1,000 RPM and you couldn't really see the lobes. You just see an outline. It's going to give you that outline. So it's going to give you the farthest X dimensions. So I'm going to hit check. Now if you see if I go to front, or top I mean, top, okay, somehow I messed my zoom up. Fit. There we go. Redo that. Okay. So you can see here, it gives me that furthest X dimension. I have to keep doing that. There we go. All right. So now I can just select this as normal. So I can go into turning, rough, and if I just go to wireframe here, I can pick my partial, and let me actually turn off the solid. So now I have this wireframe, so I can just select that to get, oops, this up, check, check, and there we go. So there are the two ways that you can do it. You know, and then I can move on, do my finish pass and all that stuff. So that's there. If you can do whichever way you prefer, either way is fine. Let's move on to engraving on the outside of a part. So for this, there's two ways you can do this as well. So I'm going to select my text, and I'm going to go into that level and turn off my turn profile. Okay, so I have text, and of course I have a solid here as well. I'm going to turn the solid off so I can select this easier, but just so you can get an idea, it's going to wrap that text and engrave it around the outside of that solid. So to do that, the first thing you need to know is you need to know what diameter you're going to be wrapping it around. So I'm just going to go to drafting, circular, I'm just going to select that outer line. It says a radius of 3/4, so that tells me it's 1.5 inches diameter. All right, so I'm going to turn my solid off. I'm going to go to top. I am going to go to turning, and I have two cross contours here. This one cuts parallel to the axis of rotation, which basically means it's going to keep it parallel no matter where it's at. So this isn't what we want. Really what we want is we want this one, which is going to wrap it around the cylinder. So it's always going to have the tool pointed at the Z-axis, no matter where it's at. So if you're looking at it, that tool's always going to be pointed at the Z-axis. Whereas the other one, cross contour, this one here, cross contour, it's going to do this. It's going to keep the tool perpendicular to whatever plane you're on. So we're going to select our C-axis contour, and I'm going to select my text, select a start point, hit check, and I'm going to select a tool. 16th ball end mill works. I want compensation off because I don't want to be off to one side or the other. I want to go centerline cut if I'm engraving, right? So we're going to turn that off. Linking parameters, let's do a negative 0.005. Everything here is incremental, which is perfect because we want to be incrementally above wherever our text is going to be placed. Now, to get this to wrap, what we have to do is we have to come down to our rotary axis control. And unroll basically means that it's going to lay it out flat. So we want this to roll. So we want to unclick unroll so that it actually rolls it around the axis. How it's going to know where to roll it around, it's always going to roll it around the Z-axis. So that's a given. That's the center of our part. We just need to tell it how far out, what diameter it needs to wrap. So in this case, we're going to put 1.5 and hit check. And you can see there, it now engraves around the outside. So we're going to run this. See how this turned out. Play. And there we go. And we've engraved on the outside of the part. Now, those letters look a little deep, so I would probably change the Z value for my Z depth. My depth wouldn't be my Z in this case. It would actually be my X. But I would change the depth of my ball end mill so that these weren't quite as deep and they didn't, kind of go together there. They're all kind of merged together. So I'd want a little bit smaller, or I could go with a smaller end mill too, or an engraving bit or something like that. Okay, so the other way to do this is to actually wrap the text around the part, around the solid. So the way we're going to do that is, let me turn these toolpaths off so they don't get in our way here. Okay, and let's turn that one off. And let's bring our solid back on. And our text is there. Okay, so I'm going to select my text. Actually, I probably should go into the command first. Transform, and we have this thing called roll. And we're going to roll that text around the part. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to window it, and grab it. Select start point, check. And it's showing me it's going to roll around there. So I'm going to put the diameter in. In this case, I think it's 1.5, as I remember correctly. And there it's going to preview it. So now we have it rolled around there. We can also toggle where we want this. So this gives us a little more control, right? I can put this up here. That way it's in between these two. Basically anywhere I want. And that's an angle of 93 degrees. I can also just specify a specific angle as well. So that works for us. If we use that, then we can go ahead and just select our C-axis move here. So it copied. I should have actually selected move, but that's all right. We'll have two copies of it. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go to turning, and we're going to do our C-axis contour. And I'm going to select it again because I can't select it before. I'm always in a habit of doing that. Select a start point, check, and get my tool again, parameters, everything's off, -5 thou. Let's change that to -0.002 since last time it looked a little goofy. And then axis control, we still need to put this in, but we can click the unroll now. We don't need to have that unchecked. So put 1.5 and hit check. And there you can see it does our text. So let me run that so you can see it. So there we have our first one. Oh no, that's the good one, I think. It's hard to tell which one's which. They both are too deep. I think this is the good one that we made. And then this is the one that's merged together. Yeah, those are a little bit more smashed together. So even 2000s might be a little too much, or that ball end mill might be a little bit too big. But that's the two ways that you do it. So again, as always, if you have any questions, you can see me during my office hours, or of course you can ask me during class.